Welcome to the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. I'm Melisa Liberman, a fellow IC and business coach. On this podcast, I teach you to become a consistently booked independent consultant without becoming a pushy salesperson or working 24/7. If I can do it, you can too. Listen on to find out how. Welcome to episode 231 of the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. This is Melisa Liberman, and today we're talking about the mindset behind $1 million independent consulting business. And this is so meaty, I ended up having to split it into two parts. Otherwise, we'd be here for a while. So I'm excited to share with you the first components of this $1 million mindset here today, and then stay tuned for next week. So we're going to finish off the concept so that ultimately, whether your goal is to ultimately grow into $1 million business or beyond, or your goal is to just double your revenue from maybe you're at 200 and you want to get to 4, or you're at 250 and you want to get to 5, or maybe you want to create $750,000 business, this episode is for you. Because the mindset that is behind $1 million business is what is ultimately going to fuel the actions that you're taking, the decisions you're making, and the effectiveness of the strategies and the tactics and the actions that you're implementing. So whether your goal is to make $1 million business or not is not the point here. What the point is helping you to see the difference between what a mindset looks like for someone who's got a growing, thriving, highly lucrative business compared to businesses that are, making less than what you ultimately want to be making, and helping you to understand how shifting your mindset will help you to achieve your goals more effectively and more quickly than what you would do if you're trying to operate without addressing the mindset. So with that, let's dive into the episode. I thought I would also share one of the inspirations. That's what I was looking for. One of the inspirations for today's episode. I was working with a client, and one of the comments that he made, just sort of sort of off the cuff, is he's really solidly making progress toward his goal, but his financial goal, but he also shared that the ultimate goal feels very far off. And so when we're operating off of a mindset that the goal is achievable, but it's far off, or it's such a reach, it makes it so much more challenging than when you're able to look at that goal in a different way and build, what this mindset that we're talking about here today, even if logistically it is a distance between where you're at right now and the goal that you're wanting to achieve, whether that's $1 million goal or something much, much beyond where you're at right now. When you're thinking about it as something that's so far off in the distance, it's never going to get you there. And so that's why I wanted to share with you this episode here today, and also for that client, so he can reinforce what we've been working on and help you to get to where you're wanting to go more effectively and more quickly. So that's what we're talking about here today. In terms of the agenda, we're going to first start with what is $1 million mindset? What does that actually mean? What isn't it? Why do you want that? And then I'll share with you the 6 components of the $1 million mindset. We're going to dig into 2 of them in depth today, and then we'll go through the other 4 in depth next week. So stay tuned for that. At the end of today's episode, we'll talk about how to put this episode into action. Even though we haven't fully gone through all the components quite yet, I want to make sure that you're able to put the episode into action while you're waiting for next week's episode. Okay, before we dive in though, I do want to encourage you to consider this companion resource that I want to tell you about. It is the Business Brain Journal. So I've been telling you about these physical products that I'm working on, and the time is coming where they're almost live in Amazon. So it may be live as of the moment that you're listening to this episode, if it's mid-August of 2025 or later. If it's not quite live yet, not to worry. It should be there any day now. It's on a boat, so it's got to go across the ocean and get checked in by Amazon and it will be ready for you here shortly. So you can add yourself to the wait list, and I'll give you first notice that it's live on Amazon if you go to www.growthatlas.solutions. So the word growth, the word atlas dot solutions, growthatlas.solutions. Go get on the wait list, and I will let you know when that business brain journal is available. It's 100-day guided journal to help you build your business mindset in a way that fuels your goals coming to life. So I can't wait for you to see it. In the meantime, today we're going to talk about the $1 million mindset. So, first, let's just level set on a few things contextually so that we're on the same page as we're going through this. When we talk about $1 million business, what I'm talking about today is not a boutique consultancy. I'm talking with you about a solo business model where you may have some support. It would be likely you would have some supporting resources, not a team of employees. This is called Grow Your Independent Consulting Business for a reason. Although you might want to build a small boutique, that's certainly the concepts that we share here that I share here on the podcast certainly will help you to do that. But you can also grow this as a solo independent consultant. So I want to just reinforce that here today with some non-client facing resources to help you with things like running the business on the on the operation side, potentially doing some client support type work that's doesn't need to be client facing unless you want it to. And this is a business model that allows you to that create that $1 million revenue, making around $84,000 a month on average. So that's what we're talking about, just to make it super clear. Now, you might already be arguing with me, but Melissa, it's too far of a stretch from where I'm at. But Melissa, I don't want the hassle that comes with running $1 million business. I don't even need $1 million. 500K would be plenty. Those might be the things that you're thinking right now. And I want to challenge you. You're here listening to this episode. So I want to challenge you that on a few levels. First, set a goal for 1 million. It doesn't mean that you have to achieve it, 100%. Remember, we talk about this so often on this podcast, 80% of 1 million is 800,000 versus setting a real, quote unquote, realistic goal or practical goal. I hear so many people telling me, well, I want to set a practical goal. Why do you want to do that? There's really no reason to set a practical goal. Hitting 100% of a practical goal is 200,000, 250. That's so much less than 80% of 1 million, right? So think about it from that perspective. What would this stretch if you set $1 million goal or even a goal that's double where you're at right now? What would it break? You want it to break. You want to set a goal that expands you so far that it's breaking the current state. It's breaking the comfort zone. It's breaking the familiar. And that's what helps you to create sizable growth versus incremental. Another reason to set $1 million goal is just because you can. Why not? Why not set $1 million goal and take 3 years to get there? What I will say though, with a caveat, is two things. Number one, if it feels just too far of a stretch, let's say you're at 200K today and 1 million just feels so far out of reach and that it might sabotage you, don't worry, that's not a problem. Then apply what I'm giving you today with a 500K goal, for example, or a 400K goal. Think about it as 2xing or doubling what you're making right now, because the concepts that I'm sharing with you today, even though we're calling this the $1 million mindset, these apply to the type of doubling or increasing that makes sense for you where you're at the moment. So the point here is either go for 1 million and take on the challenge and see what it breaks and see how it helps you to transform your thinking in a more in a more effective and accelerated way, or if you feel that that's going to backfire, take the concepts I'm sharing with you and think about it from the perspective of doubling what you're doing right now to help you to get to the place of applying what we're talking about and implementing and really transforming the way that you're thinking so that you can create different results for yourself and your business. All right. So that is the But Melissa segment of today's podcast. Hopefully, adjusting any arguments that you might be having in your mind as you're listening here, and really encourage you to set a goal that, it's the middle of the year. We're not necessarily setting goals at the moment, but why not? Why not set goals right now? If you're listening to this in the real time, or take what we're applying today and apply it to the goal that you've set and really double down on achieving the goal that you set rather than kind of thinking about revising it because you're not on track to hitting it. Okay. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about what is $1 million mindset. What does this actually mean? Simply put, $1 million mindset for you as an independent consultant is you operating from the perspective of a business owner who is generating $1 million in revenue on a yearly 12-month basis, yearly or 12-month basis, where you're thinking, you're deciding, you're leading yourself and your clients like that $1 million business. So you're operating from where you want to be, kind of backwards, versus where you're at right now, trying to strive forward. You think of yourself as $1 million business owner. You think, what would I do? How would I make this decision as $1 million business owner? What would I be worrying about as $1 million business owner that's different than what I'm worrying about right now? Those are the types of things that we're thinking through so that you're able to get your head into the headspace of how does $1 million business owner who just generates $84,000 a month on autopilot, just it's their norm. You have a norm. Your norm might be 10K or 20K or 30K. That might be your norm. And believe me, a lot of people are striving to get to where you're at right now. Your norm is created because you have a mindset of, this is possible for me. This is what I do as a business owner. This is what replaces my corporate income, so it makes sense. This is the pricing I'm comfortable with. All of that collection of thoughts creates your current results. What we're doing here with your $1 million mindset is creating a new set of thoughts that creates a new norm for you. And it might feel a little bit or a lot bit of a stretch to get to the place where right now you create 10 or 20 or 30K without really having to strive for it, versus getting yourself to the place where you're creating 83, 84, 85K without feeling like you're having to strive for it. That is just the way your business typically works. Amazing, right? Amazing to get to that place. That's the $1 million mindset. So that $1 million mindset, that person is prioritizing business development, strategic focus, revenue generating activities, and delivering incredible, impactful results for their clients. That's what that mindset looks like and how it plays into action. So what happens without a $1 million mindset? I think this is equally as important, right? When you don't yet have a $1 million mindset, you've got underpricing. You might be charging based on time, not on the outcomes that you're creating. Without a $1 million mindset, you might be in much more of a reactive cycle. So you're only focusing on business development when the pipeline is dry or when you're worried a contract is coming to an end, versus knowing that you have a business, and weekly focus on and prioritization of business development is part of owning a business. Without a $1 million mindset, you might be in the place where you're focused on over delivery in the sense of working long hours to generate more income if you're working on an hourly basis, or to justify the rates that you've set, and getting yourself to the place of exhaustion because you're overworking your employee who happens to be you. You also aren't creating leverage for yourself or assets. You're at a place where you likely have frameworks and systems and intellectual property. You're just implementing it kind of by naturally, but you're not capturing that and building it and creating it in a way that's codified and reusable and gives you a head start on project over projects, and ultimately becomes something that you're productizing and leveraging to make it easier to fill your pipeline and to sell your work because you're creating inbound leads and interest for the type of results that you create. Without $1 million mindset, your confidence is wavering. You might be taking setbacks personally. You take it personally if someone isn't replying to you or ghosting you. You take it personally if you're at a place where you send a proposal and they tell you they're not moving forward. And as a result, you're derailing your progress. That's what you're lacking if you don't have the $1 million mindset. Again, not a problem. We just want to help you get to the next level. So ultimately, without the $1 million mindset, you're stuck in what an employee mindset or doer mindset where you're doing the work. You're not thinking about the business side of it. You want to be doing both, working on your business and working in your business. And likely you're hitting a ceiling or a plateau like we were talking about last week. So that's what the $1 million mindset is and why it's important. And what happens if you don't have one? So now let's talk about so we've talked about it conceptually. Let's drill it down into some very tangible, what I'll call pillars of the 6 million of the, sorry, I'm mixing things together. I want to talk with you about what the 6 pillars are of $1 million mindset. And this is from me observing and working with and looking for patterns and trends and the difference between consultants who are under earning and consultants who are at 1 million or approaching 1 million. What is the difference between the two, especially when they're offering the same type of service and have a similar background? What is the difference? We talk about this often on the podcast. Why are some consultants successful and others are underachieving when they have a similar offering and type of work they do and background? And it comes down to the mindset. It comes down to the mindset. And so as I was thinking about this episode for you and this $1 million mindset, it distilled down into 6 distinct categories. The first is business owner identity. How are you thinking of yourself as a business owner? I'm going to share with you all 6 pillars, and then we're going to go into depth in 2 of them today. And then, like I said, next week we'll do the remaining 4. But let me tell you all of them now. So we've got number 1, the business owner identity. Number 2, having strategic discipline. Number 3, demand ownership. Number 4, value-centric pricing and offers. Number 5, asset thinking. Number 5, asset thinking. And number 6, growth resilience. So some of these sound a little fluffy. I'm gonna tell you exactly what they mean so that they are tangible for you and you know what it looks like to have that mindset and the impact of having that mindset will make for you. And why, honestly, you want to be investing in the time and attention and priority to cultivate this $1 million mindset so that you can grow your business through by growing yourself in the way that you're thinking. So let's start off and talk about the business owner identity. That's the first of the 6 pillars. I'll give you a definition, a few characteristics, tell you what it isn't. That's, I think, even more important maybe than what it is. And then we'll talk about what it sounds like. And I'll give you a few questions you can put into place to really start thinking about and getting more clear for yourself about what this business owner identity is. So the definition, just simply put, it's you seeing yourself as a strategic leader of yourself, leader of your clients. You're a leader of a high-performing consulting business of one, or a boutique if you've got a boutique. You're not just the person delivering the work. Truly seeing yourself as a business owner. We talk about this a lot on this podcast. This is you thinking of yourself as a business owner, not I have a business, not I own a business. I am a business owner. I'm a successful business owner. I'm a capable business owner. I'm good at owning a business. That kind of thinking versus I am a consultant who has a business. It's different. It's different. You don't just have an LLC. You have a business. And thinking of it that way is going to help you to make decisions from the lens of your business, like the future, the vision, the direction you want to be heading versus what your present, your present circumstances. It helps you to own the results. We've talked on this podcast before about 100% responsibility. You are 100% responsible as a business owner to create the results, to land new clients, to create a pipeline, to price at a level that helps you to meet your revenue goals and profitability goals and utilization goals. You are responsible for your results. When you think like a business owner, that's how you think. You don't blame clients or the market or the economy or lack of time for your results. You, as a business owner, when you have this mindset, are owning those results, taking responsibility for everything in your business. Again, this isn't meant to as a tool to use as a weapon against yourself to make yourself feel bad. This is a tool to say, listen, I can accomplish anything. I don't need to rely on anyone else, the market, any given client to be successful. Of course, you need clients, but we're not relying on X client, whatever name that is, to be successful. So that's what it means to take responsibility. This business owner identity, when you have and fully integrated this business owner identity, you're prioritizing business growth activities alongside delivery. This isn't what you do in your time that's left over or kind of, when you feel an emergency because your client is wrapping up. As a business owner, when you have a business owner identity as opposed to a consultant, I'm delivering the work identity or employee identity, you're prioritizing those growth activities, revenue generating activities on a weekly basis. And you're setting boundaries to protect your time and your energy and your focus. I was talking with a client today and she was working, trying to figure out how to offer something to a potential client she didn't really want to work with in a way that she was hoping it would repel them, essentially. A little bit of people pleasing, right? And I said to her, this is you protecting your energy, your time, your focus. What if they say yes? You don't want them to say yes. Tell them that it's not a good fit right now, right? That's the business owner identity. And you're leading with long-term vision. You're leading with abundance, not scarcity or short-term urgency. That's what a business owner identity looks like. So we've touched on this, but let me just say it explicitly what it's not. The business owner identity is not you thinking like an employee or a contractor. You're not an extra pair of hands. You're not a consultant with a business. You don't say yes because you've got a bird in the hand or you want to stay utilized. You're not making decision based on fear or scarcity or your current workload or lack thereof. You're making decisions based on the vision of the business and the goals that you've set and the boundaries you've created for yourself and the ideal client work and client type that you've defined. And you're definitely not letting clients dictate your time or your pricing or your business model. You are a business owner. You're not just taking what you can get and making the best of it. This is what a $1 million business owner thinks, how they approach their business, how they make decisions, how they take action. So let's compare and contrast here to help bring this to life. And then I'll share a couple of questions for you to think about to start building up this business owner identity because you want to make it tangible for yourself. This isn't just a theory, something nice to listen to on the podcast while you're walking your dog. This is about integrating this thought process so that you truly think of yourself in this way and it's just your new norm. And that's what fuels the results. That's what creates the $1 million. By you thinking of yourself as someone who has $1 million business and therefore taking action and avoiding doing things that doesn't align to that $1 million business owner and therefore setting the conditions that create that result for yourself. So let's compare and contrast. As an example, a 200K business owner mindset might sound something like, I'm a solo consultant doing great work for clients. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And it's important to do great work for clients, obviously. That's what we're doing, why we're here in such large part, to do great work for our clients and ultimately for ourselves to generate revenue, right? It boils down to that. But you want to be thinking about when you hear that sentence, I'm a solo consultant or independent consultant doing great work for clients, it's so focused on you being someone who delivers work. Whereas $1 million business owner identity would sound something like I run a business that delivers high value outcomes and grows by design or grows intentionally. You see, where it's much more about the business itself and the two benefits one, which is to your clients and the outcomes they're gaining and achieving, and the other, which is about the business success for you as well. It's that shift. It's those subtle shifts that are going to help grease the skids for you to make achieving your goals easier and more in a more accelerated fashion. So I'll leave you with respect to this first pillar, business owner identity, with a couple of questions that you want to be thinking about and answering for yourself and getting really clear. And we'll put these in the show notes so you can go grab the list of questions. How would you define yourself as a $1 million business owner? Get clear on that. What are your predominant thoughts and feelings and actions? And if you decide you want the Business Brain Journal book, you'll find a page in there just for this purpose. You also want to get clear on what you aren't thinking. What aren't you thinking, feeling, and doing as a $1 million business owner? You want to get incredibly crystal clear about what this $1 million business owner is thinking and feeling and doing and not thinking and not feeling so that you can bring that to life for yourself. This isn't theoretical. This isn't, just a interesting exercise. This is about you getting and embracing that version of yourself so that you're thinking in that way. So ultimately the results will follow. And that's the whole point of this episode and next episode as well, to help you to do this. Okay, let's talk about the second pillar, and then we'll wrap up today's episode with how to put what we've talked about so far into action. And then, of course, next week we'll finish off the other 4 pillars. The second pillar is strategic discipline. I picked those words purposefully, strategic and discipline. Let's say, what is the definition of this particular way of thinking as a $1 million independent consultant? It's where you're consistently focusing on high leverage actions that drive your business growth, even when delivery is demanding. The discipline is the consistency, and the strategic part is about the high leverage actions that drive your business growth, even when you feel pulled by the amount of time that you need to be spending working with clients and balancing that with working on your business. The strategic discipline mindset is incredibly important and a key component of a $1 million mindset. So what does that look like? You're protecting time for thinking and planning and business development. You likely start this off at the beginning of the day so that you don't get to the end of the day and hope that you have time left over to do this. You're working on your business, not just in it. And you're operating from a clear set of priorities so that you know that those map up to your goals for the year and your long-term goals and vision. You've got that waterfall, if you will. You're also avoiding task switching and distraction and just reactivity, being reactive. Of course, no one's perfect. You're going to have times where you're having to react or you're getting kind of bogged down in letting your inbox determine your priorities. But for the most part, as a $1 million mindset, that you're much more proactive than reactive. And you're using your calendar to reflect strategic intent, not just client needs. So when you look at your calendar, you look at the future, your upcoming calendar, you look at the past, and you can see the balance between working on your business and working in your business reflected on the calendar and the way you're spending your time. By things as simple as setting meetings with yourself, whether you're using a paper calendar, like the new quarterly business planner, I'll give you a plug right there that you can get for running your business, or maybe you're using a digital calendar. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You want to just know that the calendar, the way you're spending your time reflects this strategic intent, and it's not fully driven by reacting to client needs and meetings that, is so easy to go meeting to meeting to meeting, kind of from that employee mindset that we're so used to having done that for probably decades at this point. Okay. So then that's what it looks like to have this strategic discipline pillar of your $1 million mindset. And so now let's talk about what it isn't. It's not letting client work fill your calendar, take up 100% of your time. It's not you, even if you're billing by the hour. And that might sound hard because you have to choose between, in some minds, you think I'm choosing between generating money or working on my business. But that is a mindset that's going to keep you trapped making around the same amount you've been making. When you think about the amount of revenue you could be generating by working on your business and the opportunity cost of not doing so, then you know that this is an incredible priority, even if you're leaving hourly rates on the table. What it isn't, strategic discipline mindset is not, or component of the $1 million mindset is not reacting to the loudest task. It's not confusing activity with impact. And it's not avoiding strategy because it feels, non-billable, like we were just talking about. This is you look at thinking like with the business owner identity, and then with that, incorporating the strategic discipline component of the mindset, where you've got a really solid balance in place that maps back that these certain set of activities in your best guess are going to lead to the results you're looking for in your pipeline, in your closed clients, in the type of work you're landing, in the pricing that that they're agreeing to, and then ultimately bringing your business goals to life. That's what the $1 million mindset sounds like. So let's compare and contrast. A 200K mindset often sounds like I'll focus on the business when I have time, or I'll have time next week to focus on the business. And then next week never comes to fruition, right? Again, no, this is not a problem. A 200K business is, you've created an incredible milestone that so many people will never be brave enough to do. They will stay in corporate even though they don't want to, because they aren't ready to take that leap and believe in themselves. You've done that. But to get to the next point where you've got this $1 million mindset, you would be thinking something like, I create time for strategic work because it's how my business grows and I grow. You see the difference there? One is more reactive. I'll focus on the business when I have time, as if whatever's left over that your clients haven't taken, versus I create the time for strategic work because it's how I grow the business and myself. So let me leave you here in this pillar with two questions. How do you prioritize as a $1 million business owner? So get clear about that. Really think about, how do you prioritize your time? What does your calendar look like? What do your routines look like? Really make it tangible for yourself versus a theory. And then what's no longer a priority? What are you no longer doing? So those are the first two pillars of the $1 million mindset. We will continue next week, so stay tuned with the other four so that you'll have all six of them in a really detailed, actionable way, ways to make it actionable. So let me say this again. I kind of merged those two concepts together. Next week, we're going to talk about the remaining four mindsets that encompass the $1 million mindset. And then I'll share with you how to make these actionable, so that this is not a theory or a concept, but something you can put in place in your business. In the meantime, start implementing your $1 million mindset. Answer the questions that I shared with you today. Start making it much more tangible for yourself so that you can start to see what's possible for you that you might not even have realized, so that you can start thinking about and making decisions for your business in a different way that helps you to start accelerating your growth without having to sacrifice your work-life balance or your business life balance. And then if you want help implementing this, you can go to consultmelissa.com and apply for a coaching exploratory call. By the time this episode is live, I will have reopened my calendar for consultations for one-on-one coaching, and the number of spots is going to be very limited. So I will be reviewing applications and then letting you know whether or not I think it's a possible good fit, and then we'll set aside the time to meet each other and determine if it's a good fit mutually, both of us. So with that, I encourage you to go work on your $1 million mindset, and I will see you again next week.
Thanks for joining me this week on the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. If you liked today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. First, click subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to make sure you don't miss future episodes. Next, leave me a review in your podcast app so other independent consultants can find and benefit too. And finally, to put the ideas from today's episode into action, head over to melissaliberman.com for the show notes and more resources to help you grow your consulting practice from your first few projects into a full-fledged business. See you next week.